Now, you know, we talk about how the audience didn't respond to this, but of course, a great percentage of the audience loved it. But for the mass audience who were looking for entertainment, it was just too downbeat, and the Bogart character was something that they could not identify with or want to identify with or have any empathy for.
People often deride the studio system and talk about how impersonal it was and how it stifled the creative freedom of so many filmmakers. Well, if so, how does a film like this exist then? How do you explain it? This film was made with complete integrity. This film bore few, if any, signs of compromise. Yes, Jack Warner would have liked a happy ending. He asked John Huston to think about making a happy ending. Huston refused, and then Warner backed him up. Even he recognized what a great movie it was, and he was proud of the movie.
But I think the public does have to be forgiven in this case because of the time of not particularly warming to that movie. It was also a time when, right around that era, when a lot of the films from Europe were coming in, like Open City, the Rossellini one, and all of that. And there was kind of people like that kind of thing, the art house crowd liked that kind of thing, Paisan and Bicycle Thief and everything, or they liked the Hollywood film. There was kind of a mix. People still wanted to see, you know, Fred Astaire dancing with Sid Charisse and, you know, Jane Powell with, you know, singing arias and things like that. And so they weren't ready to buy Hollywood at that point doing things that were so European, like Treasure of the Sierra Madre. I just think it's a miracle that it got made in the first place.
The icing on the cake for this movie, especially since it had not been a box office success, was getting the recognition it did from the Academy.
In those days, it was done in a theater and Pantages, and so I was sitting with my then husband, John Huston, and his name is called, and you had to leave and walk up there and get the award, and then he'd come back down somehow. I mean, time passed, and he came and sat down again in his seat with his Oscar. So we're sitting there and watching the rest of them. Lo and behold, again, for direction, and off he goes. And he said, "Here, hold this." And he plopped this golden Oscar in my lap. Well, I want you to know, for the rest of the evening, this Oscar evening, I held the Oscar, and when it was over and people are moving back and around stage and they're taking pictures of John and the other winners, his father had won too, I'm over here with my own Oscar, holding it, loving every minute of it. I feel like, well, I did win, in a way.
Here you have John Huston winning an Academy Award for his screenplay and also for his direction. And you have Walter Huston, his father, winning the Best Supporting Actor, and this was the first time, perhaps the only time, that a father and son, two family members, won awards for the same picture in the same year.
It's a big part of Academy history that there was this historic night when father and son both won Oscars. The son having directed his father, having written the part for his father, and being there to receive the approbation of his father at the same time.
Best Picture passed them by. It went to Laurence Olivier's Hamlet, which of course was the time of the British invasion and doing all those prestige films with the red shoes, Great Expectations, so forth and so on.
Well, one of the many mysteries of the Academy Awards, when you look back, is how certain films, certain performances, certain achievements could have been ignored. And it doesn't seem possible that Bogart would not have been nominated for that performance as Fred C. Dobbs, and yet he wasn't.
And of course, you don't know what the final tally. He may have lost by one vote, but it was a long time. It was a long time coming for him, and he had every other success. But of course, you want to have the one that everyone says, well, of course, now you are now you have the gold statuette. This is it. Your fame is assured.
It's one of the great disintegrations of a character, in a way, the downfall of a character that Bogart portrays in this movie. One of the great ones, to chart that downfall, and to see where he goes wrong, and to also know what it is about human nature. That's really what the film's about.
But it was a great performance, and one that I think really established him further up the ladder in everybody's mind as a great actor.
Fortunately, right after that, he did Key Largo with Huston, which was very popular. Bacall was in it, Edward G. Robinson was in it, and it was a crowd pleaser as well as being a critical success. Then The African Queen was also a crowd pleaser and a critical success. Because here, once again, you had a different Bogart, but there were elements, of that you loved about the character and the interplay between he and the Katharine Hepburn character. So it was a different story all the way around. And it was a unique treatment of a love story against this exotic African background.
His performance in The African Queen won Bogart his Oscar. John Huston made and appeared in dozens more movies, some classic and some not, until his death in 1987. The Treasure of Sierra Madre was a triumph for Walter Huston. He made 3 more films before he passed away in 1950. Tim Holt was hoping that his role in The Treasure of Sierra Madre would lift him out of the B movies, but it didn't. He continued to work as an actor until the early 1970s and was a radio station manager in Oklahoma City when he died in 1973. After a dozen more films and several television appearances, Bruce Bennett retired from acting in 1972. Bogart made a half-dozen more films before he died of throat cancer in 1957. He remains arguably the most popular star of Hollywood's golden age. Though audiences didn't respond at the time, Treasure of Sierra Madre built a following over the decades and is now one of the treasures of the American cinema, considered by many to be Huston's crowning achievement and Bogart's finest performance.
Some people who don't like so-called old movies because they find them too corny or too sentimental are caught up short by The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Because, of course, it's not corny, it's not sentimental, and it's great. And it holds up extremely well, I think in part because it does have a certain cynicism to it, and in part because it's such a great movie that it transcends the years.
It's never dated. I mean, I think it's the vibrance of the performances and the vision of Huston, working the script, working the actors, and placing that camera in the right position, and the universality of the story.